I'm letting life hit me until it gets tired. Then I'll hit back. It's a classic rope-a-dope. Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 80 of Movies Are Awesome, the show all about spreadsheets. My name is Nathan Pottle, and thank you for joining me today. And today's episode is probably not going to be a super long one. I'm working overtime at work this week. I'm working all the time, and it seems like I'm never at home. But I still wanted to be able to put something out, and I'm feeling a little energetic, so it's the evening right now. I got home from work not that long ago. I've got my supper in the oven, and by the time I'm done recording, it should be ready. So here we go. I'm going to talk about strange movie cameos today. That's what I'm talking about. There's a whole lot of movie cameos out there when people show up, and some of them are a little strange. I'm going to talk about them, and just that's going to be it. That's going to be the whole episode. Why don't I get started here? My first one is going to be from the movie Hook in 1991. Now, did you know that Glenn Close is in the movie Hook? Glenn Close is a pretty famous actress, if you're not familiar with her, but she plays a pirate who Captain Hook decides has betrayed him somehow. And so they take this pirate and they put Glenn Close in what's known as the boo box, which is this little chest that they put them in, and then there's a slot that they open in the top and they drop scorpions into the box. And it's Glenn Close that they throw into that box, which is kind of interesting. I like that movie Hook. It's directed by Steven Spielberg, if you're not aware of that. And you know what? For a movie in 1991, it's pretty fun. I remember really liking it a lot. There's the Lost Boys running around and they have skateboards and they don't fly. Peter Pan is the only one who can fly. It's a little interesting twist on the classic Peter Pan story. So it's a good movie, and Glenn Close is in it, so that's pretty cool. I read somewhere also that Phil Collins is also in Hook somewhere, makes a cameo appearance, but I don't know what Phil Collins looks like, so that doesn't really help me, does it? It doesn't. I'm going to move on to the next one. The next one is a classic from Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. That one has a cameo of one Donald Trump, who you may know as the President of the United States right now. We'll see if he stays that way. I can't see it happening, but that's too political for this show. I don't do that. Plus, I'm Canadian, so what do I care? But in any case, in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, Kevin McAllister is, as you would guess, lost in New York. If you haven't seen it, he is staying at this hotel, and he has his dad's credit card, so he's just spending all of this money. And when he gets to the hotel, he is lost in the lobby, and he asks someone for directions, and that someone is Donald Trump, and he directs Kevin down the hallway to the place that he needs to go. Donald Trump has actually made cameos in other movies as well. He's also in Zoolander. Now, this one is not so strange as the Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, because when he makes the cameo in Zoolander, it's actually a cameo of a lot of famous people. Like Natalie Portman makes an appearance. David Bowie is in Zoolander as well. That movie's actually really packed with cameos. So that's why I didn't list Zoolander as one of these movies with a strange cameo, but it definitely has a lot of cameos in it. But Donald Trump in Home Alone 2, it seems kind of weird, kind of out of place, and so that's why I included that one on this list. I really think the best cameos, though, are ones that come completely out of nowhere and that you don't really expect. And this next one from Get Smart in 2008 is Bill Murray is in this movie, and he plays Agent 13. And Steve Carell's character, he is also a secret agent, and he's on his way to work, and Agent 13 shows up to talk to him, and he's in a tree. He just opens up like a knot in the tree, and it's just Bill Murray's face, and he sticks his head in, and he's like, oh, hey, how's it going? And him and Steve Carell just talk for like a minute, and that's the only time that he's in the movie at all. He just shows up, he has a quick conversation. He's pretty funny because Bill Murray is hilarious. And then when their conversation's over, he just leaves. He doesn't show up in the movie again. Now, I don't really like the movie Get Smart very much, but Bill Murray showing up randomly just in a tree is pretty fun. Bill Murray also just kind of shows up out of nowhere in Zombieland as well, and because he has kind of a bigger role in that, I wouldn't even call it a cameo, even though he is playing himself. But because Bill Murray has such a large role in Zombieland, I don't think I would necessarily call it a cameo. I don't think it is. So anyway, Bill Murray in Get Smart from 2008. The next one. Now, these next two, actually, these are the kinds of cameos that unless you knew who that person was, you would not recognize that that's who they were. And that's the same with Glenn Close and Hook, actually, because she had like a beard on and pirate outfits. You can't really tell that it's a woman underneath all this pirate makeup. But these next two are even crazier. And the first one is Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder in 2008. Now, he plays the character of Les Grossman, who just has these big hairy forearms and glasses and a hairy chest, and he's kind of thick, and he's just a real mean Hollywood producer, and his role is actually hilarious. Every time that Tom Cruise as Les Grossman is on screen, I'm 100% in, and I'm laughing because he's so funny in this role. And it's really interesting too, because Tom Cruise doesn't really do comedy too much, so the fact that he's in this and he absolutely nails it, well, I'm actually not surprised that he nails it, because Tom Cruise gives 110% to every one of his roles. He really commits to his characters and to acting, especially when it comes to those Mission Impossible movies, and he's doing all those crazy stunts. And with Top Gun Maverick, which is maybe coming out in December or maybe coming out next year. Who knows what's going on with any movie ever these days. He learned to fly a jet for those movies, and he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So Tom Cruise is a dedicated actor, and the fact that he has the comedic timing for this role and he really nails it, that's fantastic. And plus, he's completely unrecognizable. It wasn't until after I had seen the movie and then someone told me that that was Tom Cruise that going back and looking, then for sure you can tell, yeah, that's Tom Cruise. So that's what makes it a great cameo, is that it's a secret, hidden cameo that's just kind of in there, you know? And it's really similar to when Daniel Craig is in The Force Awakens. Unless you know that it's Daniel Craig in that stormtrooper suit, you have no idea who that guy is. It kind of sounds like Daniel Craig a little bit, not too much. I'm just realizing that I brought that cameo out of nowhere. I didn't even include it on my list. Daniel Craig being in Star Wars is a strange cameo. I'm adding it to the list right now. The Force Awakens came out in 2015, is directed by J.J. Abrams, and it has Daniel Craig as a stormtrooper, and it's really strange that that cameo exists. Also, Simon Pegg is in it. I don't think it's as a cameo, though. He plays a character. So I don't think Simon Pegg counts as a cameo, but Daniel Craig definitely does. So I'm adding an extra entry into there, just Daniel Craig in Star Wars. Also, just before I started to record, I thought of another one. Now, I can't remember the year the movie came out, but Back to the Future 3 has the band ZZ Top playing at the unveiling of the clock tower in the town of Hill Valley, like back in 1885. So when the band is playing at this ceremony, everyone is dancing and having fun. That's ZZ Top playing all the music, which is really fun. And there's actually a lot of bands who make appearances in the Back to the Future movies. And just remembering that also at the very beginning of the first Back to the Future movie in 1985, I believe that movie came out, and Marty McFly's band is playing and they're auditioning to play at the school dance, and the guy cuts him off and he's in the megaphone and he's like, "I'm sorry kids, I'm afraid you're just too darn loud." The guy who is speaking in the microphone, I think that might be Huey Lewis from Huey Lewis and the News, whose song That's the Power of Love is really heavily used in the first Back to the Future movie. I'm pretty sure that's who it is. If not, it's some famous musician at the time. Of course, now I'm completely blanking, and because I didn't look this up and include it as part of my list, I don't know who I'm talking about. But at the beginning of Back to the Future, there's some kind of cameo of some famous musician. I got myself kind of off topic there. I wanted to talk about, after Tom Cruise dressing up in heavy makeup, I wanted to talk about this next one, and that's Mike Myers in Bohemian Rhapsody, which came out in 2018, and this one is actually crazy on just how unrecognizable Mike Myers is in this movie. Now, he plays the character of Queen's agent, or music label record. He's the guy who approves the music and then gets it on a record and gets it out to the people and gets it on the radio. What's that person called? Why do I not know this? I feel like I should. He represents the record company. Anyway, and he doesn't like the song Bohemian Rhapsody. He thinks it's way too long and he thinks it's way too weird. And that's fine, because it is long and it is weird, but it's also great. and I love that song. And I think most people really enjoy that song. But getting back to the point, Mike Myers, he hasn't really been in a lot of movies lately. He is kind of on the down low. And I think if I remember hearing correctly, it's because his movie The Love Guru, when that one came out, it was really poorly received. And with good reason, because it's not a very good movie. I've seen it and it's not funny. And he's just doing weird stuff this whole movie. But I guess that movie was had a special place in Mike Myers' heart, and because it was received so poorly, it really hurt him, I guess. So he kind of stepped away from the film industry. I think he kept doing some Shrek stuff and some other things here and there. So he hasn't been in the forefront of comedy or really anything in the last little while. So having him show up here in Bohemian Rhapsody in a serious role, he's not even a comedic character, he's just playing a role. I found that very, very interesting, and they put him in so much makeup you can't even tell that it's him. So Mike Myers in Bohemian Rhapsody is another strange movie cameo. I don't know if this next one is really strange or not, but in Deadpool 2, we get a very quick cameo of Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt plays the character of the Invisible Man. I can't remember if the Invisible Man had a name or not. But in Deadpool 2, he's creating a team of X-Men people so that they can go attack other people. I'm about to spoil some stuff in Deadpool 2, by the way, so just to let you know, there's a sequence in Deadpool 2 where he assembles this team of X-Men, or mutants, I guess, and they're in an airplane, and they're all dropping out of the airplane and down onto the ground, and the entire sequence is the entire team just dies. Like, everyone dies in a different way, in a really gruesome way for the most part, and the Invisible Man falls onto these power cables, and the entire time you couldn't see him. But then when he appears, it's very briefly Brad Pitt, and then he explodes. And you get like 2 to 3 seconds of seeing Brad Pitt being electrocuted, and then he's dead. And that's the entire thing. Now, is that strange? I don't really know 100%, but it does have an interesting story. I will tell you this story. If you're not familiar with it, when Ryan Reynolds approached Brad Pitt about doing this movie cameo, Brad Pitt didn't want any money to do it. All he wanted was for Ryan Reynolds to get him a cup of coffee and just like always give him coffee when he was on set, like personally deliver him coffee. And Ryan Reynolds did it. He got him his coffee. I think he also drove him around a little bit too. I can't remember 100%. I should have looked it up before I sat down and started recording because I knew I wanted to tell this story. But of course I didn't, so that's on me. But in any case, Brad Pitt is in Deadpool 2 really quickly, and he did it for just some coffee. And that's pretty good of Brad Pitt to do, seeing as it's such a small, minor role, and everyone knows who Brad Pitt is anyway, and it's not like he's strapped for cash. At least I can't imagine he is. He's probably doing just fine. He's in a lot of movies, and he has a lot of money. At least I'm pretty sure he does, or at least he should. I don't need to talk about Brad Pitt's financial situation, though, because I have no idea what it is. Why don't I move on to the next one? And this next one is a twofer. It's 2 strange cameos in the same movie, and I'm talking about Jurassic World from 2015. The first strange cameo is Jimmy Fallon makes an appearance. He's in a ride. Now, this is something that Disneyland and Disney World does a lot, where they'll have famous actors doing the pre-show of a ride. Like Patrick Warburton is at the front of Soarin' Over the World and Soarin' Over California. There's some other famous actors as well. Of course, I'm blanking on all of their names right now, but Patrick Warburton in Soarin' is a really great one, and it's so good. He even calls himself Patrick, so you know for sure it's Patrick Warburton. But in Jurassic World, we have Jimmy Fallon, and he's in one of the rides, and it's like this glass sphere that rolls around in a pasture where there are other dinosaurs in, and he's talking about these dinosaurs and all these other things. But then when things go wrong and the ride breaks down, he's talking about like the safety procedures of all the rides and what they're supposed to do in that situation. They just need to stay put. So that's kind of a strange cameo. But an even better one in Jurassic World is Jimmy Buffett. Now, Jimmy Buffett is a country singer, and he sings a song called Margaritaville. And in the movie, when the pterodactyls are attacking everyone, there's it's really quick, so you have to catch it. But there's a guy who grabs 2 massive margaritas off of a bar and starts running away with them, and that's Jimmy Buffett. And it's such a weirdly placed cameo. I don't know why this needed to be included in the movie, but I'm glad that it is, because watching Jimmy Buffett grab these massive margaritas, knowing that he's the guy who sings Margaritaville, it's very funny. It's one of the few redeeming things about Jurassic World. When it first came out, I liked it a lot, but upon reflection, I like it a lot less. Unlike Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, where I just didn't like off the bat, and I have not rewatched it since theaters, and I don't plan on rewatching it. We'll see if Jurassic World Dominion is any good at all when it eventually comes out. I think it's supposed to be next year. But like I said, everything is so up in the air right now as far as releases go. I have no idea when we're going to get anything. So Jurassic World has Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Buffett, 2 famous Jimmys. All it needed was Jimmy Kimmel, and it would have had the trifecta of famous Jimmys. I only have one more left to talk about. How long has it been? About 15 minutes or so? Yeah, that sounds about right. But everyone knows that the king of cameos is Stan Lee. Now, Stan Lee has made a lot of cameos in his time, over 40 in fact, but there is one cameo by Stan Lee above all others that is the strangest and weirdest, and you wonder, why is Stan Lee in this movie? Why is Stan Lee in this movie? And that movie is Princess Diaries 2, The Royal Engagement. Now, if you have seen Princess Diaries 2, The Royal Engagement, it is the sequel to The Princess Diaries. This one came out in 2004. It stars Julie Andrews and Anne Hathaway. That's her name. Why didn't I say her first? She's the main character. But Chris Pine and John Rhys Davies are also in this movie too. It actually has a really solid cast, some really famous people. But anyway, there's a scene in the movie where people are coming in for the wedding, and Stan Lee plays this foreign dignitary who professes his love to Julie Andrews and says that he should be married to her. And then he does this weird gesture with his arms, and it's supposed to be an impression of the Three Stooges, but because I'm not crazy familiar with the Three Stooges, I didn't get it. If the lady standing next to Stan Lee didn't say that that's what he was doing, I wouldn't understand that that's what was happening at all. So Stan Lee is in The Princess Diaries 2. It's very strange that he appears in this movie, and this is long before he started appearing in all the Marvel movies. Like, at this point, he was in X-Men, and he was in Spider-Man, and he was in Blade, and like some other movies. But this is 4 years before Iron Man came out. So even back then, Stan Lee was still pretty famous and making cameos, and it's just absolutely crazy. I'm going to just sidestep a little bit and say that my favorite Stan Lee cameo of all the Stan Lee cameos is when he makes an appearance in a movie called Mallrats. And the main character, he's really sad about his girlfriend and he thinks she's going to leave him. I think that's the scenario that's happening. It's been a while since I've seen it. But Stan Lee comes up and he talks to this kid and he gives him some really good life advice and talks about his wife and their relationship and how they met, and it's really touching and heartwarming. He actually has a tender moment with this young kid, and then he just walks away. The entire interaction is over. It's really, really great. If you haven't seen Mallrats, it's kind of a strange niche movie. It's directed by Kevin Smith, who makes strange niche movies, so if you're not into his movies, you probably won't like this one. But at least go online and watch the Stan Lee cameo in it, because it is really good, and I would say definitely worth watching. That's it, though, I think. That's going to be it for today. Kind of a shorter episode, just like I said. That's not a problem, though. So those are my strange movie cameos. I talked about more than the 8 that I wrote down, because I just came up with other ones on the fly, so that's great. But now I'm going to turn it over to you guys, the listeners, and ask you, what is your favorite movie cameo, or what is the strangest movie cameo that you've ever seen? Please let me know. You can reach out to me on social media. You can find me on Twitter at PottleNathan, and you can find the show on Instagram at Movies Are Awesome Podcast. If you haven't done so, please feel free to subscribe to the show. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Really means a lot to me. Today was episode number 80. I've already done 80 of these. I'm gearing up to do more. Next week, I've got a very special movie review lined up for Halloween weekend. I'm very excited to release that one. So stay tuned for that one. And as always, if you have nothing else to do, go watch more movies.